Okay, so we're holding Perek Rishon, the first chapter. Tractate Shabbos is the name of the chapter. Page Yud Beis, and we'll start with 12a1, the top. Shelo Yilke HaKoisel, right? To protect the wall from damage from the rain. Eino b'chiyutan. So we spoke about yesterday an interesting case that where you're using a utensil on Shabbos, taking a utensil, and your intention, you're putting it on the wall, but your intention is not for the cup or the bowl, the plate, to be washed. Rather, your intention is for a certain area in the wall to be protected. That was the example of a koifer ke'or koisel. If one turned over a plate on top of a wall while it was raining, and the rainwater then dripped from the plate onto some produce, the law is as follows. So what would be the status? We're not so concerned with the plate itself. We're concerned with the status of the fruits or the vegetables. Are they susceptible to tumah now, or they're not susceptible to tumah?
We said that the machshava was to save the wall, not to.
If the machshava is to save the wall, the intention is to save the wall, then the fruits are not susceptible to tumah. But
right.
If the thought was to contain water or to wash the plate, that's why you place the plate on the wall. Then the fruits and the vegetables become susceptible to tumah.
True.
Right? This is a case. This case is subject to the scriptural rule of if water is placed, that is, the produce is rendered susceptible to tumah contamination. In bishvil, if on the other hand, the owner placed the plate on the wall in order to protect the wall from damage, eino b'chiyutan, then the scriptural term of if water is placed does not apply to this produce. Now the Gemara says, "Me dummy, are these cases comparable?" Awesome. There, in the matter of tumah susceptibility, that the determinant is whether the owner wanted the liquid. The owner in that case evidently does not want those liquids. He doesn't want the rainwater at all. Mm-hmm. Hence, the rainwater does not render his produce susceptible to tumah. But here, in the matter of carrying on Shabbos, the determinant is the person's need for the act of carrying. And the Zav needs to carry this pouch to catch his secretions, so that they do not soil his clothing. Thus, he should be liable for carrying it on the Shabbos, meaning he has a need for that kli.
If somebody has a colostomy bag, colostomy bag is, so would this be the same principle for the colostomy bag?
The colostomy bag sounds like more of something that is a must.
Yes.
This is more of like to protect his clothing. Meaning, why does he care about the secretions? Because it will soil his clothes.
It'll make a mess on him.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the other guy can't live with a colostomy.
Can't live without it. It's a little different. Okay. It's not the same. Right. The Gemara says, "Halo damya elo leseif." Rather, this case of Esav is comparable only the latter part of the Mishnah cited above. Areva shiora delafasecho, a bowl into which a leak drips into it. If one deliberately positions the bowl so that the leak drips into it, water that splashes or split or spills out of the bowls does not meet the scriptural requirement of chiyutan. If water is placed, it cannot render food susceptible to tumah. So in this case also, a bowl into which a leak drips, if one deliberately positions the bowl so that the leak drips into it, water that splashes or spills out the bowl does not meet the scriptural requirement of ki'utan. It does not go directly from the bowl. There's a crack and there's maybe a hole in the bowl, and then water that comes out from it, that's not under chiyutan. But the water inside the bowl does meet the scriptural requirement of if water is placed. It can render food susceptible to tumah. Now this Mishnah speaks of a case in which the owner used the bowl to protect the surface beneath it. Although the act was done to protect something from damage, the water that collects in the bowl as a result of this act can render food susceptible to tumah. In the case of the Zav, too, he wore his pouch to protect his clothing. Nevertheless, his act is effective and is so far as it renders him liable for violating the Shabbos. So having refuted all earlier attempts to resolve the contradiction between the two biases about a Zav's pouch, the Gemara presents its final explanation. Ela Abai v'Rava Damri Tarvaya. Abai and Rava both said, Lo kasha, there's no difficulty. Ha Rabbi Yehuda v'ha Rabbi Shimon. This bite, which rules that a Zav is liable for going out with his pouch, follows Rabbi Yehuda, who maintains that one is liable even for a labor not needed for its defined purpose. The Rabbi Shimon in this bite, which rules that the Zav is not liable, follows the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, who maintains that one is not liable for such a labor. What is this type of labor? Labor not needed for its defined purpose. The Mishnah taught, we're going to 12a2, the Mishnah taught that one may not go into a public domain carrying an object just before the Shabbos. Why? Lest he transfers it after the Shabbos begins. The Gemara now teaches an exception to this rule. Tana devei Rabbi Shmuel, Yoytze odam b'tfilin be'erev Shabbos im chashecha. You're allowed to go out be'erev Shabbos with your tefillin, even though right before nightfall. My time, Kevan de Omar Rabba Baravuna, since Rabba Baravuna said, Chayav odam mashmeh tefillin kol shah v'shah. A person has to touch his tefillin, a mashmeh b'tefillin. A person is obligated to touch his tefillin at all times, so that he remains aware of their presence. Kal v'chem u'mitzitz, and this is derived from the tzitz of the Kohen Gadol. Ma tzitz shem bo lazkor acha. Since concerning the tzitz, on which there is only one mention of God's name, is Yud Kodesh LaShem on the tzitz. What does the Torah says? V'ayol mitzchay tamid, don't whatever mitzchay tamid, that it constantly has to be on your forehead. Why? Shelo yasiach daito meno, that he should not divert his mind from it, his attention from it. Tefillin sheish bo naskor sahaber, tefillin in which the names of Hashem is mentioned repeatedly many times. Alachas kam v'kama, how much more so should a person not divert his attention from the tefillin? Ilkach midkar dochir leu, therefore one who is wearing tefillin before the Shabbos will remember them and not come to transfer them after the Shabbos begins. So we see the exception to the rule is tefillin. Tanyo Chananya Imer. Chananya says, a person should check his clothes before Shabbos, right before Shabbos. Why? Again, maybe he forgot an object inside his pockets. This is an important rule for avoiding violation of the Shabbos. The Mishnah continued, one may not delouse his garments, and one may not read by the light of a lamp. So the Gemara asks, by the light of a lamp qualify only the immediately preceding clause. One may not read also the clause before that. One may not delouse his clothes. Ibalu. They asked how the Mishnah should be read. Lo yafle es kelov bayoim. On the one hand, perhaps the clause, the one may not delouse his clothes, represents a separate rabbinic prohibition, which applies even during the daytime. Why? Shema yarog lest he kill a louse. Rabbi Elazar, and the Mishnah follows Rabbi Elazar, who maintains that killing a louse is biblically prohibited. The Tanya. It was taught in the Bait. Amar Rabbi Elazar, one who kills a louse on Shabbos, as if he killed a camel on Shabbos. Meaning there's no difference between killing a fly, killing a louse, or killing a camel on Shabbos. This according to Rabbi Elazar. Another prohibition to do on Shabbos is not to read lo yiraner, looking at the candle, using the candle to read. Why? Shemayate, maybe he would start moving the candles. Oy dilma, or perhaps tarvayu shemayate. Both of these prohibitions are due to a decree made lest he tilt the lamp. Maybe he will be tilting the lamp. One may not read and one may not delouse, both maybe lest he tilt the lamp. To identify the louse, he also needs the lamp.
Does this apply to a mosquito that's on there that's going to bite you?
Louse? What is a louse? A little...
so we have a mosquito.
You're not allowed to kill it.
Okay, since we're doing the coronavirus thing, let's say there was sleeping sickness going around, and we know that.
Yeah, you can make it. You can maybe blow on it, but not to kill it.
If you know that's carrying.
It's something else. When it's a danger to life, anything is everything changes. But I'm not talking about regular case.
Okay, a regular stung mosquito you can't kill.
And over here, speaking about delousing clothes, it doesn't necessarily have to be something that you actually already wearing. What about you're taking from the closet your pants or your shirt and you start delousing it?
Oh, okay, no, you can't do that. All right.
Tashma, in the right column, bottom of 12a2, it says Tashma ein poilin ve'ein koirin lo yiraner. One may not delouse garments, getting rid of the lice, and one may not read by the light of a lamp. This brisa seems to prohibit delousing only where it is done by the light of a lamp. Mi alim masnisin, is the implication of this brisa any stronger than that of the Mishnah? The question we had regarding the Mishnah, does by the light of a lamp qualify one may not delouse, applies equally to the brisa. Is it the same? Is it equal? The same prohibition not to read by the light of the lamp, and one may not delouse. Tashma and poilin lo yiraner, one may not delouse garments by the light of the lamp, and one may not read by the light of a lamp. These were among the laws stated in the upper chamber of Hananiah ben Chizkiah ben Goren. Shmamina the Tarvayu Shemayat, to learn from this brisa that the sages prohibited both of them, delousing and reading, only by the light of a lamp, lest one tilt the lamp. Shmamina indeed learn a conclusive proof from it. The Gemara applies the Mishnah's prohibition to another case. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel afilu lavchin bebigdo levigdei ishto. One may not use a lamplight even to distinguish between his garments and his wife's garments, lest he tilt the lamp. Amar Rava obviously would create a more of the oil to burn more, and the similar type of an issue. But the idea is why not to tilt? We said not to read by the light of the lamp because you might tilt. What's the issue with tilting? Creating more burning of the oil. Amar Rava lo amoron. So you're not allowed to even use the lamplight to distinguish between your clothes and your wife's clothes for the same concern. Then maybe you will tilt it. Amar Rava lo amoron el devnei mechoizah. It was stated in regard to the garments of those who live in the city of Mechoizah. Aval divnei chaklayoso meida yodei. But as far as of the garments of rural inhabitants are concerned, one can easily discern between those of men and those of a woman. Therefore, one may do so under lamplight, because it's easily you can easily figure out which is which, then you're allowed to use it because there's no concern that you might tilt. And even concerning the garments of those who live in Mechoiza, this prohibition was stated only in regard to those of older women. But as far as the garments of younger women, one can easily discern between them, and those of a man easily differentiate between the two, and one may do so under lamplight. Tanu Rabban, ein poilim bereshus orabim. One should not allow his garments in a public domain, even during the week, mipnei hakoved, out of respect for those passing by. It will discuss. Kayotze v'omar Rabbi Yehuda v'omar Rabbi Nechemia, ein oisin apiktoizin bereshus orabim. One should not induce vomiting in public, mipnei hakoved, out of respect for those who passing by, whom it will disgust. Tanu Rabban mafles kelo, one who delouse his garments on the Shabbos, mul v'zerik, may roll the louse between his fingers and toss it away. Uvilvad shelo yarog, provided that he does not kill it. Abishol loim v'noitel v'zerik v'ashloim loim. Abishol says you have to be even more careful. He may take hold of the louse and toss it away, provided that he does not roll it between his fingers. The halacha is that one may roll a louse between his fingers and toss it away. And this is a respectful way for one to delouse a garment, and one should use this method even during the week. It says in 34, Rav Huna maintains that in fact it is permitted to kill a louse on the Shabbos, for he issues no warning against doing so. He specifies a ruling simply because that is a more dignified method of removing lice than killing them. Rav Huna's opinion, which accords with neither Abba Shaul and nor Rabbi Lezer, nor the Tanakama, which is Rabbi Lezer, follows the view of Beis Hillel, which is presented below. Let's see the view of Beis Hillel. The Gemara records how various Hameroim deal with lice on the Shabbos. Rabbo makteleu, Rava would kill them. Rava would kill the lice. Rav Sheshes maktelu, Rav Sheshes would also kill them. Rava shodilu lekano demayo, Rava would throw them into a bucket of water. Omalu of Nachman levenose, Rav Nachman said to his daughters, Ketulin v'ashmeinan li kol desanvosi, kill the lice and let me hear the sound of my enemies as they die. Rav Nachman wished to stress that the halacha follows Beis Hillel, who permit killing lice even in the most direct fashion. The Gemara cites a Tanoic source for the opinion that it is permitted to kill lice on the Shabbos. Tanya Rabbi Shimon Elazar Omer. Rabbi Shimon Elazar says, "Eno irgin es ha'ma'acheres b'Shabbos." One may not kill a louse on the Shabbos. Divrei Beis Shammai. These are the words of Beis Shammai. U'Beis Hillel matir. Beis Hillel said you're allowed to, permitting the killing of a louse on Shabbos. Now, v'chen oy Rabbi Shimon Elazar mishum Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Rabbi Shimon Elazar used to say in the name of Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, "Ein meshatchin astinokos leores." One may not arrange for girls to be betrothed, to be engaged. V'lo esatino klam de sefer ulam de umnus. One may not arrange for someone to teach a boy a text or teach him a craft. Vein menachmin avelim, and one may not console mourners. Vein mevakin cholim b'Shabbos, and one may not visit the sick on Shabbos. Divrei Beis Shammai. These are the words of Beis Shammai. Beis Hillel matirin. Beis Hillel permits. Beis Hillel permit these activities on the Shabbos. Tanu Rabban Lamanachis Anichas Avakas Achrei Eloim. One who wishes, one who enters to visit a sick person on the Shabbos should say, Shabbos im elizak ufu akoyv level. We actually use the same expression when someone is sick and we need to bench him on Shabbos. We say Shabbos im elizak ufu akoyv level. It is the Shabbos now, therefore we are prevented from crying out for your recovery, but recovery will come soon. Rav Meir says, one should say the Shabbos itself can have mercy and bring your recovery. Shabbos itself has the power for healing, according to Rab Meir. One should say, may the Omnipresent have mercy on you and the sick of Israel. One should say, the Omnipresent have mercy on you among the sick of Israel, which is a little different expression. Shevna ish Yerushalayim, when Shevna, a prominent person in Yerushalayim, would enter to visit a sick person on the Shabbos, he would say Shalom, peace, and when living, he would say Shabbos imelizuku for the Shabbos prevent us from davening, from crying out, but recovery will come soon. V'rachamov merubin, and God's mercies are many. V'shivsu v'shalom, and rest on the Shabbos in peace. The Gemara specifies which of these Tanoic opinions is the source for the following Amoraic statement. Kemanos la'od Amar Rabbi Chanina. With whom does this teaching stated by Rabbi Chanina accord? One who has a sick person in his household must include him together with the sick of Israel when praying on his behalf. Keman, with whom does this teaching accord? It accords with Rabbi Yossi. The Gemara cites another teaching by Rabbi Chanina on this topic. Rabbi Chanina said, it was with difficulty that the rabbis permitted one to console mourners and to visit the sick on the Shabbos. So it says in number 4, because the visitor feels the distress, and now he's distressing himself on Shabbos. So Bekoishi, it was a difficulty to do that. The Gemara records how a certain sage would address a sick person during the week. When we would go with Rabbi Elazar to visit a sick person, we noticed that Zimnin Omar Amokim Yivkot Chol Shalom. Sometimes he said, may God remember you for peace. V'zimnin Omar leRachmana Idkirinoch Lishlom. And sometimes he said, may the Merciful One remember you for peace. What's the difference between either may God remember you for peace, or may the Merciful One remember you for peace in Aramaic? So either in Hebrew or in Aramaic. Rachmana yidkerinoch lishlom, Aramaic, but the meaning is the same. And Amokim ifkot chol shalom in Hebrew. So sometimes he addressed the sick person in Hebrew, sometimes he addressed the sick person in English, in Aramaic. And how could he have done so? How could Rabbi Elazar have prayed in Aramaic? A person should not ask for his needs in Aramaic. He should say it in Lashon HaKodesh, in Hebrew. Why? Because Ein Malach HaShos is talking like the ministering angels do not pay attention to him. Why? Shein Malach HaShos Makirim B'Lashon Aramaic, because the ministering angels do not know Aramaic. The Gemara explains how Rabbi Elazar could pray in Aramaic. The Gemara says, Shani Choyle, sick person is different. Why? The Shechina, because the divine presence is with him, regardless, without davening. Since the divine presence is present at a sick bed, one who prays there does not require the ministering angels to relay his prayers to God, or to relay his prayers to Hashem. For the same reason, one who prays together with the community may use any language, because God Himself attends the prayers of the community. The Gemara explains how Rabbi Elazar could pray in Aramaic. Shani Choyle the Shechina Damar Rav Anan said in the name of Rav, how do we know? From where do we know that? Where is it derived that the divine presence supports a sick person? Shenemar Hashem Yisadenu Aleresh Dovoy. For it is stated, Hashem will support him, on the sick bed. One who enters the sick person should not sit on a bed or on a chair, Rather, he should wrap himself and sit before him. What does it mean, wrap himself? It says in number 10, this too is a sign of reverence for the divine presence. By covering his head, he limits his view, and thus he sits in the manner of an awestruck person who does not glance about. That's the interpretation of Rashi. Why? Because the divine presence is above the head of the sick. Say that Hashem will support him on the sick bed. From where is it derived that Hashem is sustaining the sick person? For the state that Hashem will support the sick, Hashem will support him on the sick bed. Going back to reading using the light of the candles, this prohibition applies even if the lamp is twice the height of a man above the ground, and even if it is as height of 2 ox goads. What is ox goads? Mardois, it says in 13, in those times ox goads were of a specific length and were sometimes used as units of measure. And even if it is at the height of 10 houses, one atop the other, although in these cases there is no concern that the lamp will be tilted, the prohibition applies nevertheless. The Mishnah taught this prohibition in the singular form. He may not read, the Gemara therefore infers, if it is one person who may not read by the lamplight on the Shabbos, but 2 people are permitted to read by lamplight together. And neither one person alone nor 2 people together may read by the lamplight on the Shabbos. This is not a difficulty. Here in the Mishnah, the reference is to 2 people reading one passage. This is permitted, for since they are reading together, one will notice if his fellow reaches to tilt the lamp. But here in the Baisa, the reference is to people reading 2 different passages. Since each is involved in his own passage, neither will notice of his fellow reaches to tilt the lamp.
So then that's no good.
Yeah, so Inyan Echod is reading the same subject, the same page. Shnei Yonim, 2 different passages. And then there is a concern that they will tilt it to their side. Amar Avuna, we have learned that the prohibition does not apply where 2 people are reading the same passage. The prohibition of using the lamplight on Shabbos, this leniency is now qualified. When it comes to Medura, to a bonfire, even 10 people are prohibited to read by its light on the Shabbos. The Gemara qualifies the Mishnah's law that one person may not read by lamplight on the Shabbos. If he is a distinguished person, muta, he is permitted to read by the lamplight on Shabbos. Why? Because a distinguished person does not usually adjust a lamp even during the week. This is a very famous teaching. One may not read by the lamplight on Shabbos lest he tilt the lamp. Omar Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha. Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha said, I will read by lamplight and I will not tilt the lamp. It once occurred that he read by the lamplight and sought to tilt the lamp, but caught himself in time. He was about to do it and then he stopped himself. Omar, how great are the words of the sages, for they said one may not read by lamplight. And he almost did it. And there's a different opinion that says Rabbi Shmuel didn't really stop himself, Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha, rather he did tilt the lamp. And he wrote in his notebook, in his diary, Ani Shmuel ben Elisha korisi v'teisi ner b'Shabbos. I, Shmuel ben Elisha, read and tilt the candle on Shabbos. And when the temple will be rebuilt, I will bring a fat, fine chatas offering, a sin offering, a fatty sin offering. This Baisa proves that even in the case of a distinguished person, such as Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha, there are grounds for concern that he might tilt the lamp by which he is reading. It thus contradicts Rava's ruling that a distinguished person is permitted to read by lamplight on the Shabbos. So Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha is different. Why? Because for he treated himself like a common person in regards to the words of Torah. When he studied Torah, he did not act like a distinguished person, but as a commoner. Hence, no proof can be inferred from here regarding the law of a distinguished person. Tani Chad, the Gemara cites conflicting biases. Tani Chado Shamash B'Dekosei. A servant may inspect cups and plates by lamplights on the Shabbos to see whether they are clean. And it was taught in another baisa, lo yivdok. A servant may not inspect cups and plates by lamplight. Lo yikash. So one place it says that you should check. One place it says he's not allowed to check these cups and plates. Here in the baisa that prohibits servant to inspect a tableware by lamplight, the reference is to a permanent servant who is fearful of his master, afraid that his master will discover some dirt on the table. He might tilt the lamp to provide sufficient light for a close inspection. Here, the Baisa permits this activity. Is the reference is to a temporary servant who is not fearful of his master. Such a servant is unlikely to tilt the lamp because he does not inspect the tableware closely. Or if you wish, say, both this Baisa and that Baisa deals with a permanent servant. There's no difficulty. The Baita who says that it's prohibited, that prohibits a servant to inspect a tableware by lamplight, deals with an oil lamp, which does not give off a foul odor. Or the nafto, the baisa the baisa that permits this activity deals with a nafto with lamp which has a foul odor that would deter the servant from tilting it. What is the law in the case of a temporary servant using an oil lamp? The law is that a temporary servant may use an oil lamp to inspect tableware, but we do not issue this ruling publicly. Rabbi Barabba said the law is that a temporary servant may use an oil lamp to inspect tableware, and we do issue this ruling publicly. The Gemara records an incident. Rabbi Ravasi kom shame ko. Rabbi Bar Abba visited the house of Ravashi on the Shabbos. Kam shame kabodik l'neiro dishogo. Rabbi Yirmiyah's servant went and inspected the tableware by the light of an oil lamp. Omar le devisu. Ravasi, his wife, said to Ravasi, Umar lo yavidachi, but Master Ravasi does not allow temporary servants to do this. Amar le shivkei ki Rebbe svirale. Ravasi said to her, leave him alone, for he follows his master Rabbi Yirmiyah, who maintains that a temporary servant may use an oil lamp to inspect tableware, and that this ruling may be issued publicly. In truth, they said, the chazan, the sexton, may look where the children are reading by lamplight. He can see where they're holding, but he may not read by lamplight. But the Tana of the Mishnah stated in the first clause, Roye, he may look where the children are reading. My lovely, to look at what? Obviously, it's referring to reading, allowed to read. But then you stated that he may not read. So the Gemara says, Lo l'sadar parshiyeiso, rosh parshiyeiso. The Mishnah means that he is allowed only to prepare the beginning of the passages. And so said Rabba Bar Shmuel, Aval mesadu rosh parshiyoso, but he may prepare the beginnings of the passages. V'chulo parsha loy, but is it so that he may not read the entire passage? V'chulo parsha loy. Meisivei Rav Shin Gamliel Aimer Atinokus B'Sabon Misalim Parshiyos Kohen Le'Raner. They objected to this ruling on the basis of the following Baita. Shin Gamliel says the school children would prepare passages and read by lamplight on Friday night, Shabbos. This Baita indicates that one is allowed to read the entire passages and not just their beginnings. If you wish to say that the Baita means that one may prepare only the beginning of his passages. In fact, neither the children nor the sexton are allowed to read any more than the beginning of each passage. The children will do this for the purpose of preparing their lessons for the next day. The permit of two people reading together does not apply here, either because each child has his own book or because they are reading different passages. And that's from Sfas Emes. So, Iboy Seymo, or if you wish, say that the Baisa means that one may prepare only Roshi Parshiyoso, the beginning of his passages. Children are different, for since they are in fear of their teacher, they will not come to tilt the lamp. Bruchim Tiyu will continue, God willing, tomorrow.